Hey guys, welcome to this week's episode of Louder. Today we're going to be going to the first part of this new section called Mirrors. We introduced it last week and talked a little bit about it. We're actually going to be diving into the first part of it today. We're going to be going back to the very beginning, all the way at the beginning of the Bible, at the beginning of the story of humanity, and we're going to be talking about the time that God took a selfie. So let's get started. The world and distractions are constantly getting louder around us. What if the gospel rose above all of that? Join us as we challenge ourselves to know God more and to make the gospel louder in our own lives and in the community around us. May the gospel get louder. So all the way back in 2014, which seems like so long ago now that it's 2020, but in 2014 they titled that year the year of the selfie. It was one of the first years that word really started coming up, and it became one of the most shared things on all of the internet. So I'm sure at some point you have grabbed your phone or you've grabbed a camera and you have taken a selfie. We've all done it. But we're going to talk about a level below that. We're going to do some selfie-ception. Okay, that was bad. Anyway, we're going to go way back before George Washington, before Julius Caesar, before King Tut, all the way back before Abraham and Noah and Adam and Eve. Yes, those are real people. We're going to go all the way back to when it was just God and what the Bible describes as his heavenly court. Now, we don't know a whole lot about what was happening before Genesis 1:1, but we see at the beginning of Genesis that God decided that he was going to create something beautiful. He created our universe. Now, we talked about this several weeks ago about how God created spaces, and then he created these things that fill those spaces on the first 5 days of creation. Then on the sixth day, it says that God created humanity. So I'm going to read for you guys out of Genesis 1:26 and 27 about this story about how humanity came to be. In verse 26, then God said, "Let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, over the livestock and all the wild animals, and over all the creatures that move along the ground." So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God he created them. Male and female he created them. And we see that after God created all the plants, all the animals, all the stars, the entire universe, all these things, God decided there was one more thing that he needed to do. So he stopped, he paused, and he took a selfie. Really though, he paused and he said, there's one thing that I need to make. And he decided to make mankind out of his own image and his own likeness. He said, I'm going to take the things that make me, all my attributes and personality and characteristics, all these things, and I'm going to make someone that represents all those things. That's my representative, my agent, my ambassador, all those things on earth for me. So there's just a couple points that I want to make sure that we recognize today as we talk about God's selfie. Now, the first one is just the recognition of how special, unique, and distinct from the rest of creation God made us. We're distinct in our role and our responsibility and the authority and the dominion that God gave to us to be in charge of and an authority over all of creation, to take care of it, to protect it, and to be God's ambassadors for his creation on earth. We're also distinct in our nature, that God made us in a special way to be like him. He made us in his image. He made us to reflect who he is. And then we're distinct in our relation to God. We're distinct in that we can relate to God. We can have a relationship with God in a special way that nothing else in all of creation can. And then the second point that I want to make sure that we see is that we are made in the image of God, that God made us as his image and his likeness, and that's something so special. Although our nature is tarnished and messed up by the sin that we have in our own life, we are still made in the image of God. Now that makes us have incredible worth and value in the eyes of God, that God made us to reflect his glory. And not only did he make us that way, but he wanted that relationship with us so bad, and he continued to love us and see us with that value and worth, even in the midst of our sin, that he sent his son Jesus to die on the cross for us, to become that humanity that he made, to step into that sin and to take that punishment for us so that we could have a relationship with him. God still views us with that same amount of value and worth, even in the sin that we have today. Now, as we see that we have incredible worth and value because we were made in the image of God and because of the way that God views us, it makes us feel good about ourselves, and that makes sure that we view ourselves with respect and dignity that we do deserve. But there's a responsibility that comes with that. There's an action that should come with that. Now, if you were to meet somebody that played for the Portland Timbers and they wore the jersey, they wore uniform, they were part of the team, you would expect them to play like somebody that represented that team. You wouldn't expect them to be just like everybody else and be able to play soccer like anybody else on the street. No, you would expect them to play as if they were somebody who represented that team. Now, in a very similar way, as we are representatives of God, as we are image bearers of God, there's a responsibility that comes with that, and that calls us to pursue holiness in everything that we do and pursue to reflect that image of God in the best way that we can. And lastly, with that responsibility, I just want us to consider a few things. How are you treating yourself, and how are you living as an image bearer of God? What we believe about how humanity was made and the value and the worth that each person has affects the way that we treat the people around us and we view the people around us. If we were to have an evolutionary mindset that humanity evolved by chance from something that had no value and no worth whatsoever, there's very little that stops us from judging each person's worth and value from their abilities, what they look like, what we think is good for us or for humanity. But God created every person as someone of worth and of value, and we should treat them in a way that reflects that. So how can you make the gospel louder? By viewing the people around you with the value and the worth that God created them with, and treating them with respect and dignity that they deserve. Using the responsibility and authority that God gave you as his representative on earth to stand up for the weak and to live as someone made in the image of God. Okay guys, that's all I have for us. I hope you guys are doing well. We'll see you guys tonight. We're going to talk about this more in our Zoom Bible study at 6 p.m. We'll see you guys then.